Okay. Hi, everyone. This is me, Moon, from the Blueray Collective. Cornelia.
Hello. We're here. We brought here a guest today, and we're so excited to host our first guest. It's my first time actually meeting Jacqueline, but I've heard so many things, so many good things from Moon about Jacqueline. So we're really excited to have you here today.
I know. Welcome. Welcome so much to the Blueray Collective.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I've heard an amazing amount about you from Moon as well. So I'm just so excited to finally meet you. So I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, I just am excited to dig in and talk about whatever comes up. I'm really looking to it.
Exactly. We want to keep it as free form as possible without setting the intentions too directly, so we can download all the energies that we need to and all show up authentically and as we are and share the space together. Just to kind of explain how we all came together, we're all QHHT practitioners. We are coming from the legacy of Dolores Cannon, who has paved the path as a pioneer to allow us to be psychonauts, to be consciousness explorers by going into the subconscious mind and connecting with our past lives, with our higher selves, as well as our guidance. And all three of us, we have gone through the process together of learning, no, not together, separately, of learning about this path and going through the training, and ended up coming together to exchange sessions with each other. So we all know each other's subconscious mind and our journeys very well together. Today, of course, Cornelia and Jacqueline, first time meeting with each other, but they already feel so connected. I'm super excited to have you in one place, and let's merge our minds together.
Yeah. Jacqueline, do you want to tell us just like a little bit about yourself? Maybe like just anything, any fun facts or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. I've been a student of spirituality probably my whole life, like both of you, but about 30 years ago, it was when it really started for me, when I read the book Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss.
Yes.
Right? I read that book and it resonated with me so strongly. I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I've been looking for my whole life, you know? And so, because I was raised, in a very like traditional Catholic home, and nothing wrong with that, but I always felt like there was more than this life. Like I always wondered about that, and I always questioned that from the time I was a little girl. So when I read Many Lives, Many Masters, and it really resonated with me, and that took me on a journey, which I think is why I'm sitting here today with the two of you, because I studied so much just based on that. I read all of Brian Weiss's books, probably multiple times. I have them on audio, books as well. I've read most of Dolores Cannon's books. I've either read or listened to, and obviously did the QHHT training, but also got really into the whole concept of energy as a healing modality. And I learned how to use homeopathy and Bach flowers about 20 years ago. Probably more, because my daughter was really young at the time. And that is energy healing, those remedies. And I raised my kids and my family with those remedies. And still to this day, my daughter, who's 24, will call me from Tennessee and be like, Mom, this is going on. Like, what remedy do you think I should use? But those, I feel like homeopathy and Bach flowers really ushered me into the concept of energy as healing, because that's what they are. They're the energy or the memory of a plant, animal, or mineral. That is what homeopathy and Bach flowers are. You actually can't even detect them in the bloodstream. So so that ushered me into here, and then got into human design as well. And I love doing that. I've been a massage therapist for 20 years. But my degree is actually in industrial psychology, and I worked in corporate America for several years before I got into this whole energy thing. And but even then, it was energy because I was leading groups and consulting groups on conflict management and goal setting and things like that. So that was still that, that was still working with people and still understanding what's your energy and how does the energy of this room work together to create a common goal. So yeah, that's my jam. And I love all the metaphysical and spiritual and out there. I just absolutely love it. I think there is so much more than what we see in front of us.
Yeah, we're all just kind of explorers of the unknown.
Exactly. It's funny because that's exactly the book that sparked my interest in past lives. I remember I was on a flight from LA to Poland and my mom gave me this book and I read it in one sitting like that. Like I read the whole book on the flight there and I was like, oh my God, like my consciousness just exploded. I'm like, this is what I've been looking for my entire life. And it was just like since then it was just like one thing after another. It was like activation after activation. So it's interesting how like one little thing can just completely explode like a whole different field, So I have so much love for that book.
100%. That book is, it's so cool that touched you like it touched me. It just blew my mind.
It did. I'm like, it's just so fascinating because like it puts so much sense to a lot of the things that we're exploring in our life. And it's almost like it's just a journey that just continues on and on because there's just so much exploration through quantum healing that we can do through hypnosis.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I also read the book and I absolutely loved it as well. But the whole reincarnation concept has been very ingrained in my culture. Also, like just coming from like a Buddhist background and being Mongolian and stuff. So I was kind of familiar with the idea and the concept, but for me, I started my mind started blowing when I started listening to Dolores Cannon. Like it would just show up in my YouTube feed, as I'm listening to other spiritual messages and whatnot. Dolores Cannon would come up, and she has such a authority. Like she just talks about things that are completely hard to determine and prove and explain in such a way that completely just makes sense. It's such an anchor, and just listening to her and expanding the mind through that and understanding that I could learn this, like I could do this myself and discover my past lives and my consciousness as well as helping others to do so is incredible. And the more I dig into this field, or in general, people waking up and everybody talking about their process waking up, it's always somehow past life regression. There's always this element of, oh, first I've discovered who I was and what I'm up to and what I do in the parallel universes because I got a regression, So I think we're just at the very, very beginning parts of where this can go and needs to go as well for people to, have some heavy hitting artillery to be able to figure out what's happening in the world as well as with ourselves.
100%. I mean, it's every time, someone will ask me, what do I do? And I tell them, oh, I do this, that. Now when I do QHHT, which is a form of past life regression, like that's always where I start. I mean, it's so much more than that, but they can take hold of that, you know what I mean? And they can say, okay, I know what that is. I've heard of that, and immediately they're interested. They're like, what? You do what? I mean, how does that work? Like, what do you do? How does that happen?
Oh yeah, how does the work is like the main first thing that people say.
And I always tell them, it's like, it's a matter of surrender. Like you have to surrender to the process. You surrender, your conscious mind might come up and want to question things. And the more you're willing to surrender to the whole experience, the deeper you're going to go and the more information you're going to get. Cause like, how it is, like you start out and sometimes you start out lighter, sometimes you start out deeper. But by the end, you're just like, you're pretty deep in your, in your state of trance. Because then when you come out, you're like, whoa. And then people always tell me, oh, well, not always, but some people tell me they remember nothing. Some people tell me, they went like, it was sort of like a wave. There's times they were aware of what was going on. There's times they went really deep. Then there's people who told me, I remember everything. And then I'll say, oh, well, do you remember this? And they're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
You think you remember everything, but you don't. And like, that's why you got to have the recording, and listen to
I
it.
know that helps so much. Like, I also feel like even if people remember during the session and immediately after the session, just maybe like a few weeks in or something, like most of it has gone. It's almost like we log into people's subconscious, like their interior programming, and after bringing them up, it's like that stays underground too. Like even the work that we're doing stays underground unless you choose to dig deeper and you choose to work with it in a conscious way.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention about Jackie is also, and I would love to see if you want to elaborate more into it, is she has explained how, or you have explained how you are how you're a healer in this physical 3D reality, but the whole healing journey has actually been so much more in your multidimensional self, and I wanted to see if you wanted to tap into that a little.
Do you, in terms of like what's happened with some of the work that we've done, with some of the regression work that we've done, because what comes to mind and was one of our favorite experiences, and Cornelia, I know you've heard about, I'm willing to bet you heard about this, was one of the first regressions that Moon did with me. We met this future, it could have been, I think it was a future version of myself, and his name was Thor. And but he wasn't really Thor. That wasn't his name. He just said, that's what you're going to call me, right? Because I like that name. And so, and the thing that really blew my mind, because this is what's coming to my mind with our conversation with him, I remember very clearly, was he said, right now, and he said that he was like in the 12th or 13th dimension, right? He was way, way up there. And he said, right now, I'm having a conversation with you, and I'm having like 5 million or some crazy number, like 50 million other conversations right now as well. And that's something that we're capable of doing, and we do. But right now here on this planet where we're at, it would drive us mad if we knew that we did that, but we do it. And that like so blew my mind on where consciousness is and where it's going. And the fact that we could very well, I think we are, doing it right now, communicating on other levels. And like Cindy Dale, who wrote this 800-page book on chakra healing, which I'm reading right now, it's huge. And I think it was her, yeah, it was, who says that our brain is communicating in 11 different dimensions right now. So that really just blows my mind.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
So much sense.
Sometimes I feel highly overwhelmed, even in 3D, I'm like trying to do like the simplest task and I just zone off. Like I can blame it on that.
Right? You're doing other stuff in other dimensions. But it does make you wonder, like those times when you completely zone out, when you brought up such a good point, when you completely zone out and when you really are like, whoa, where did I just put my keys? Like,
I know.
Like, are we functioning in another dimension then? What do you guys think?
I think there are like
so
parallel timelines too of like things happening that like you're almost like shifting. There's like all these movies that kind of explain that with like when that zone out happens, you might be shifting and living in a different timeline, and then like you're coming back, but you might also be like downloading information from a different dimension. There's like, it's like there's only so many things that are like three-dimensional brain can comprehend. And I was like telling people yesterday actually at my workshop, it's just like it's you just kind of have to get like that three-dimensional mind out of trying to understand the quantum world, because there is just no way that we can understand it. But I do feel like we're moving towards that, right? With this paradigm shift, I think as we tend to move further and further, we're going to be able to make more sense of it as our consciousness expands, as our consciousness becomes bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, this quantum shift is actually that, right? Like we are learning, or like even the sense of the Blueray collective is to normalize that experience of going from linear experience of our life to a multi-dimensional way of experiencing the world. And I think there are many times when we do zone out, or when we do have our ADHD, or like different kind of experiences that are ascension symptoms per se. Ascension meaning that our frequency is high enough to be able to tune into different dimensions. And as you're saying, your higher self Thor is existing on such a high dimension that he can have these kind of things because his consciousness is that high expanded. But you as Jackie here in 3D, raising your frequency to be able to connect to Thor and being able to receive messages from him is also you kind of tapping into Thor, being able to experience that, even if it's for a short amount of time, without getting overwhelmed and coming back. And that's our work, right?
Oh yeah, that's well, okay. I wanted to say, because you mentioned the Blueray Collective, and I don't know how many people follow it on, how many people who are listening to this are following on Instagram, but if they don't follow it, they should, because I love your posts, both of you. I love them, and I love. There was one, I don't know if it was this morning that I saw, or yet I think it might have been yesterday morning, that talked about like morning routines and about when you get up in the morning. And I love my morning routine. I enjoy meditating and getting grounded before I head out into the world. But you talked about calling all your power back to you in that morning routine. And I never really thought about doing that. And I did that this morning. And it felt so amazing, first of all. And I felt very empowered within myself, like to start my day. So I love the Blueray Collective. I always what's going on there.
We're excited to see where it goes. Actually, I want to ask you a question because I think that was a big theme with me and Moon. It's like integrating the multidimensional world, and because we receive so many messages in our hypnosis sessions and in other modalities that we're doing, right, and exploring, like how do you particularly, Jackie, like how do you implement, like you have just spoke to Thor in like the 12th dimension, like you've received so much light activations, and I think sometimes personally what can be challenging is like integrating all this insane amount of frequency and information into the three-dimensional reality. Like, do you have any tips for people, or how do you manage it yourself?
That's such a good question. And it's true, because there's so much coming at us that we can really doubt or question, or like, is that really, am I really tapping into it? You know, what's really going on here? And I had the opportunity to do a session with this shaman. Okay. And he talked to me, like he listened to me speak for a long time. And he said, you know, one thing I hear with you is indecisiveness. Like you're like, you know, kind of, sort of like, you know, that was like what he heard. And he said, look, I'm telling you right now, if you're going to do the thing, do the thing. I mean, that's exactly what he told me. And and he's like this incredibly powerful man. And he said, if you're going to, you know, listen to spirit, then listen to spirit. And so for me, I got it. I was like, oh, be decisive. Like, don't question whatever's coming in. Like last night, I wanted to walk my dog at 9 o'clock at night. Okay. Cause she hadn't been walked. It was just a weird day. Hadn't really been walked. And so I go, I got to go walk her. So I go and I walk her. And I was thinking about helping someone that I know with some homeopathy. And on the walk, I looked up at the moon and I got the information on what remedy this person needed for their healing, and that they should take it at the full moon. They should take it like 2 days before the full moon, on the full, and then on the full moon, and then the next day. That was what I got. And so and I just said, I'm going to trust that 1,000%, because I'm so determined to help this person. So that was, and then also when I was walking, I saw, you know, you're looking up at the stars in the sky and it's really beautiful. And I saw this red sort of, must be one of the planets. I mean, I guess you guys might know that better than I do, but it was, you know, it was a star, but it was more like red. And I went, I mean, it wasn't super red, but it
might have been Mars.
I
Mars
think
always has
say
this
that. Yeah.
red
so?
too. Yeah.
Okay, so that even helps even more, because this particular person who I'm helping with the remedy, so his let's see, well, it's a guy, right? So Mars, and Mars is more of a masculine planet. But I was thinking about his astrology, but that's I don't know if that's right, so I'm not going to say that, because I'm not an expert on that. But anyway, that would make a lot of sense, because he has a lot of Mars energy. You know, he's a very masculine energy in his life. So that even makes more sense to me. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's the decisiveness that I decided I had to trust myself and believe that the information was coming to me, and that was in my control.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I personally struggle with indecisiveness. Is that something that I definitely, it's like till the last moment, I'm always, and that's been like focusing. And I think that's one of the big issues why I'm dealing with like a lot of sacral stuff, is because it's like you have to be confident and decisive, and like it's kind of been stagnant in that spot. So I mean, that's a great tip. For sure.
It was for me. And yeah, I've dealt with a lot of sacral, issues, power. I mean, I was the youngest of four. So I was always like the youngest in the family. I was always the baby. I was always the little one. And there's a programming that definitely happened, where for me personally, like, I don't think I tapped into my power until I was a lot older, because it was easy to be, the baby, the youngest one, in the family. And I've talked to other people who were the youngest in the family, and they said they've experienced that as well. Everyone's making decisions for you. They're dressing you up. They're telling you what to eat, that everybody's older. They seem to have cooler things to do, and you're just like the little one. But at some point I had to flip that and go, no, I'm a big girl now.
Yeah. I think it also really makes sense in terms of the bigger picture, right? Like in our own lives, let's say there's many different ways where we feel disempowered and don't take decisive action or commit to certain things and just keep going. And I feel like we're actually really moving through this eclipse season by learning to commit our daily practices, and by learning to commit to our mission on this planet and coming together as we're doing today and all these things. But also in the fact that there's so many changes happening in the world right now, that these influences are so strong on us, that if we don't make decisive decisions right now and commit to certain things and really hold on and anchor to it and ground, as you like to say, Cornelia, in your posts, we would be swept away. Like, it's a huge vortex just going and going right now. And especially during eclipse season, when the universe takes the reins, a lot of things are taken away and new things thrown at us, and we're just kind of swimming and wobbling through it. I think it, like, that decisiveness, as you're saying, Jackie, is the one way for us to stay committed and clear in our path. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
There's almost no other choice than to start making decisions and sticking to it.
And I'm seeing this sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you go ahead.
I'm seeing this, you're so right, Moon. I'm seeing this like collective move, and like everyone is just stepping into their power. And it's just so beautiful to see, because like I've never felt more ready to like do the work and show up collectively and for people. And it's like I've been waiting for that like ding 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 moment, and it started happening right after the equinox, and then like the first eclipse was like solidified, and the second one is like I'm in, and like I'm seeing it happen collectively with people who are struggling to be able to show up. So it is this beautiful moment of like we're ready, like we're leading, and like I think this is the perfect time. That's why I started this collective, because people are like, yes, they're all like, every light worker starseed is like getting the message now, like the time is now, like we're going. And yeah, decisiveness is part of it, but it's also kind of also helping with that, because as we step into our mission, you're inside of myself, like I'm feeling more centered, I'm feeling more anchored, and that anchor is helping me to guide me on the path to magnetize the right decision onto me. And it's helping with the chaos around. And I think if you guys read the book The New Earth by Dolores Cannon, right? She almost explains is like we will be watching from another planet the chaos that's happening on ours. And even there's biblical scripture that kind of say the same thing. But the way I see it, it's like I don't necessarily think we'll be on another planet. We just have a different consciousness. So we're existing on the same planet, but we're watching the ones without the awareness, right? The ones who have been zoned in into what the agenda is or whatever, right? And we're watching them with this grander scheme of expansion in our brain, as all this chaos is happening. So it's just so important to be anchoring our truth and our mission and staying focused on that, because there's going to be so many things that are thrown at us, you know?
Oh, wow. That's like perfectly said. I agree with that. And I think especially in the 20s, like 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, like those years, just from things that I've read. I mean, I'm not making a prediction, but I'm just saying from things that I've read, like 2025 to 2027 is going to be really interesting. Like there's going to be so much shift. You guys have heard that, right? Like right around that time. There's a lot of astrologers that predict that, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're also saying like 23 already, like huge shifts. I mean, we're already going
We're
through
already
shifts
in
in
it. Yeah, we're in
2023.
the
Like
midst of it.
it's already so intense, and next year is going to get more, and I think it's gonna keep increasing more and more. And I think even through our both of our regressions, like my regressions with the both of you, you know, whoever went under, we're always retrieving this knowledge and information that things are about to change drastically, like really, really intensely, and certain things that we might think is very difficult to experience, like supply chain issues and energy shortages and all these things that are predicted to be coming in might seem to be a hard thing to do, but it's also like putting, you know, fire under our asses to find these alternatives that we keep speaking of. You know, we're so addicted to our comforts that this very extremely exaggerated capitalistic society has created for us, but also these instabilities are such a good point in the chaos to give us new opportunity to really bring in the new earth. And I think we're all feeling it, you know.
Yeah, it's like it's exciting, right?
Yeah. It's exciting, and I think it's not going to be easy. I think there's going to be a lot of changes, and most of us are change resistant, right? We like to have things the old way. But part of our work as a collective and part of our work as practitioners of quantum hypnosis is to help people who are in the verge of change or who are doing the change and are like floating around, to be like, okay, we've done it, we're doing it right now, we have each other, this is the collective. If you have questions, ask us. And we are sharing our experience one by one, and we're like, okay, this is how I'm going through it, this is how Jackie is doing it, how she's managing it, and Cornelia, and this is what we want to do with the collective.
Can I share a really cool story of a regression that I did this past week? Because okay, so I did a regression on someone, and they were, you know, exploring what they wanted to do with their life and what direction they wanted to take. And so when we went to their past life, it wasn't on Earth, it was somewhere else where they were living underground. And we don't know if it was a past, future, parallel, like we're not sure, but another life, right? They were living underground because there was a huge shift on this particular planet. So that it was not Earth. And her job was to learn about the plants and the fauna that grew underground for healing and for food and things like that, right? So one of the things she talked about a ton in her regression was moss, and how she was learning to work with this moss, and she was doing healing with this moss, and the sun was very strong on this planet, and so it would burn their skin if they went out, right? And so they would use the moss for healing when people came back underground. So like a lot of her life was dedicated to understanding this moss and its healing properties. So we do the regression, and, you know, we did that, and we went into the subconscious and all of that. And I know her, and I've been telling her for a while, I go, you know, I really would like to give you this homeopathic called lycopodium. So I said, I think it'll help you, you know, with some things. And she's like, all right, great. And she goes, what is it made from? And I go, you know, I actually don't know what it's made from, you know, but I know that it's a good remedy for some things. And so she takes it and she goes home and she sends me a text and she goes, Jackie, she goes, lycopodium is made from moss.
Oh my God.
That's called intuition.
I know. And I'm like, no way. I mean, and I thought, I was like, I'm really glad I didn't know lycopodium was made from moss,
Yeah.
because that connection, like that's more than coincidence, you know, intuition. So yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time, right? With regressions, like all the time, stuff like that comes up.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I find people I work with, like I've worked with, and then I don't hear from them, which, you know, a lot of times you don't hear from them. They go off into the world, but you know, you kind of wonder like what happened. And then I'll talk to somebody who knows them because maybe they referred them to me, you know, kind of thing. And I'll be like, oh, what's going on with so-and-so? And like, they're like, oh, didn't you hear? Like she got a new job and she is making double the money now, you know, and you remember that you worked on self-esteem issues in that session, you know? And so I think it's amazing the results that you get. And I don't know if people always look back and go, oh, that regression, you know, my QHHT session was a part of it. I mean, I think they do, but there's it's like a different kind of healing than if you take, you know, if you take like ibuprofen for a headache and then the headache's gone. Like it's this raise in frequency that is so powerful yet subtle. And when you allow yourself to go with the flow, the next thing you know, you're like completely expanded and existing in another level of reality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it really depends on the people's state of consciousness and their attention to certain things. There are a lot of people who do already shadow work on their own, and they work with meditation and they work with astral travel and are healers themselves and like have that focus, that it's for them much easier, like with each other. The three of us can talk about things that happen in the subconscious and things that are in the conscious mind in a very intertwined way. It's almost kind of the same playing field, the way how we interact and communicate about it. And there's a lot of people who don't do the work, but once they go under, we can go and tweak things around. They come out, they don't quite remember what happened, but you can see the difference, and they can see the difference in a long-term kind of perspective, right? And even if they forget, okay, they had an interesting experience, but truthfully, we really did some good work there, you know. And I think we need to be just, okay, trust in what we have accomplished without having to expect people to really know what it was, because it's so far out there.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, we're simply guides, you know, we're guides. Like all of the, you know, whatever happens to a person after we've worked together, I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to guide them. And if you remember, Moon, in one of the regressions, one of the sessions that we did together, that was a lesson I had learned in a past life in Egypt, was the humility in the work of healing, that you are not the healer, you are simply the conduit with which the healing goes through. Exactly. And like, I get teary-eyed talking about that because it's so like, it's so powerful for me. And it's like an honor to be able to do that. And I think we can all do that. But I guess what makes me teary-eyed is that I don't know, just that concept. Yeah. You know.
No, I always repeat the same thing. It's like, I'm not the healer. I'm just a facilitator that's gonna help you, guide you along. It's like we're the guides, or the spirit through which divine comes through, right? To be able to help the person. But in reality, we're all one. We're all interconnected. It's like we just are in an illusion that we're all separated, but technically we're all one together.
We're like quantum guides that hold space for healing to be able to take place if the person chooses to.
That's it. It's like if the person chooses to.
That's another thing.
And I know that, you know, I know that Dolores Cannon, she worked with a person once, and then, you know, that was it, unless they found something that she wanted to collaborate with and write about. but you know, she had a huge waiting list. It was like years and years and years.
Mhm.
And I've found that I really enjoy working with people multiple times,
Mhm.
rather than just once. I mean, I don't have the huge waiting list that Dolores Cannon had, you know,
Mhm.
because you get to know the person's subconscious as well. Because you know how they have subconscious have personalities, you know, like
They
they
do.
totally do. And it is kind of like the person, but there's also like a just this different element of them that comes out. And like the
Mhm.
people that I've worked with multiple times, I'm like, oh, I feel like their subconscious is like we're becoming friends, you know?
Yep.
Exactly. That's
You
like
become a
really my favorite thing.
yeah. And you can go just so much deeper. I mean, we both like I know Moon and you have worked for together for a while. Me and Moon have worked together for like we just like it's weird that we like know our subconscious more than it was really funny because like we haven't seen each other for a few months, right? Or it was like a little while. And then but we worked together like every week. So then like we ended up seeing each other in person, we hugged and we're like, wait, like she thought I was taller and I thought she was shorter. And then we just like it took us like 30 minutes to like it was really awkward because we were like adjusting to her like three-dimensional body, but like I know her subconscious like so well and I know everything about her. We travel like the astral together all the time, but we're like, wait, like that's you? Like and you know, it's so funny. So yeah, you can go so much deeper, I think. And I am so passionate about like working with the same person over and over because I think you can reach way deeper levels of healing together that way
Yeah.
than just, I mean, some people might need just one session, but I think the most work is done in with containers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Moon.
I also wanted to say that what I find really, really interesting in working with you two, because you two are like my main ones that I interact with the most and do multiple sessions with, is that each time we experience a different level of the subconscious.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's different stages to it. It's not just, oh, you click to the subconscious or you click to the higher self. It's like, okay, there's the person, and then there's like early levels of subconscious or like close levels of the subconscious that is very aware of the conscious. And the more you go deeper, the more you go into their soul level or like their essence self. And that essence self is always there, even like in complete normal, was it alpha state that we're in right now? You know, and but what I find really interesting is also that the more deeper you go, or the deeper you go, you connect to the collective consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
from yeah, and from the state of collective consciousness, we can connect with our guides, and the guides are starting to give us directions on what we want to or should be sharing with the collective that we are creating, and more people that are, you know, out there in the mainstream. But as we even go deeper, we connect to the universal mind. And the
Yeah.
universal mind is then connected to our higher selves and like 12th dimension, you know, like very high dimensions where they're closer to source, but they are conduits to get messages to us. And what I love, like just what you mentioned earlier, is the fact that at this point, it's three people sitting looking at each other, but in reality, it's our higher selves and our other multidimensional expressions here at the same time. They're connecting as well. We're like at least 9 people here, you know? And
I
we're all
know.
friends with each other, right? Like Thor is my friend.
Oh, I know. And you know, I don't know if you guys have experienced this when the two of you have worked together. You probably have. But when first of all, the more you work with somebody too, the more they trust you as their guide. And so they're willing to go deeper because they really trust you and they know that you have their best interest in mind. But then there was messages in one of our sessions, Moon, that came through for you from, and you didn't even
So
ask.
many.
You were not
Yeah.
asking. It just came through. It was like, and I don't even remember what they were. I just know that they came
Oh,
through.
hold on. Yes, that happened a lot, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And Thor always got my back for sure. But one thing that I found really interesting was when Thor was like, "Tell Cornelia, she needs to know this, this, and that." And you guys literally met today for the first time, and Thor was talking about Cornelia 6 months ago.
That's
Do you remember
right.
that?
not until you said that. I actually vaguely remember because, so I must have been pretty deep at that point. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I just remember like, oh my God, like Thor literally is watching out for Cornelia. And the message is coming through Jackie to me to Cornelia,
we need to listen to that part.
Oh yeah, we gotta.
About.
Yeah.
I think another thing, when you work with someone in a container like for long periods of time, you become mirrors for one another, right? And you end up going through similar experiences and you begin to heal together. So that's another thing that's.
And it's almost puzzle pieces, right? Like and that's how Cornelia Cannon, I wanted to say, Dolores Cannon, that's how she wrote books, right? She would have different kind of clients come through, and eventually like the same voice would come through and continue dictating what she's supposed to put in the books. And it's always different people coming through, but it's the same voice coming through different people,
Yeah, like in Conversations with Nostradamus, like she had several different people come through and talk, but they always knew how to find Nostradamus, but it was like 3 or 4 different people that she worked with to get I listened to all those on audio because those are some long books. So I was driving, which is great, especially in Southern California because you're driving a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was riveted. I mean, just riveted by those books. There's so much in them.
I know, it's incredible. She really, really did amazing work. Like just as I was driving to have this conversation with you guys, I was like, we are the legacy, we are her. Like she did this for us, like she paved the way for us, and we are carrying the torch right now, we're the ones here at the edge of existence, we are pushing the future, the present into the future with every step that we take, with every breath that we take, with every intention that we put into furthering this work. And I feel really proud to be part of this, and I feel really proud to be connected with you guys and working the way how we're doing, because this will never get boring, and this has a purpose, and it goes so deep. It's so important. I love it so much.
Yeah, it will never get boring. That's well said.
You're always like, all right, what's today? Like, what's gonna come today? Are we gonna speak to like some 12-dimensional beings? Are we gonna be morphing into something else? Like, what is going on?
Oh yeah, that too.
It's funny, you said morphing into something else. And it's when I do sessions with people, I will go through times where I close my eyes and talk, I'm guiding them when my eyes are closed. And I'm hearing them talk, and you know how you talked about like one of you thought the other one was shorter and the other one thought they were taller, like they will morph into another person in my mind. Like I don't even see them as I know they look.
Yes.
They'll look like whatever they're talking about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
absolutely.
You go into trance with the person, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. You go into a trance. And I read another book that said that when that person enters the trance state, like, and this makes sense, you're entering this energy field with them, and you're both in that energy field. And I love being in that energy field.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. It doesn't only work with when you're next to the person and doing the session, like it's immediate, so it's much easier. You would think it's much easier to be together in the theta state with them and navigating the subconscious or the hypnosis together. But even when we are far, far away, when Cornelia is somewhere in Costa Rica and I'm sitting here in Irvine, we still go into the same kind of frequency. And even just closing the eyes, being able to be in the space with them, it's unfreaking believable. It's always a journey. If I'm going under, if I'm putting anyone under, I'm in the journey no matter what.
Yeah, you're totally in, and you're right. And I mean, I think that really shows that space and time are like they don't exist. Maybe that's what I want to say.
No,
yeah, there's an immediacy, and I think that's also part of becoming quantum or becoming multidimensional, where you just kind of overcome all these linear things that is time and space, and you just kind of jump, you jump into the higher space, and you're able to morph and merge with these fields, these morphogenic fields, in a much more visceral and conductive way than when you're stuck in the linear 3D space. But another thing I wanted to mention is I think it came through with you, Jackie, a lot, where spirit or the higher self was saying when we go under with the clients, when we are compelled to say something specific, then we should just say it. I think it's really important because we are in an open state, we are in theta state, and we are getting downloads as well. So it's almost like sometimes we become the conduit as the guides, where we go into trance, and our own higher selves that we're calling in is able to help us guide the other person who's connected with their higher selves on a different level. So I think like that message, I think, needs to be more out in the world and share with others, because we are all coming to a place of becoming channels as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's well said. I agree with that. Because there's times when, you know, I have to say something to the person. I have to, like, I can't even move forward with the session until I say whatever needs to be said. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah.
start to not be able to guide them through their experience because I'm like obsessed with what I need to say to them. So then
Mm-hmm.
finally I just started saying it. And I mean, it's not like it happens all session, you know, it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a few things. And I felt
Mm-hmm.
this huge relief, like,
Mm-hmm.
because I questioned whether I should do that or not. Right. But now I'm just like,
Yeah,
I'm doing it, decisive.
you
If you're
just
gonna
do
do
it.
the thing, do the thing. You
Yeah, exactly.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was experiencing that in the last session where you put me under, where we did the movement meditation. Hi, Mandy. Thank you for
Aw.
coming. Um, and in that session, it also happened to me that some being wanted to come through and say something, and I felt like, like really seriously, that particular being wants to come through, and I would resist it for a while, but the session wouldn't continue until I actually said what he wanted to say. So it's almost like we commit to it, but we can only really truly commit to it when we have created a safe space. I think we need to also mention that in the public, as we're talking to also others and who are listening in and stuff like that. No matter what you do when you go under, like, create a really, really safe container, because there's all kinds of beings out there that could come through and that can take possession if we're not careful.
Yeah.
On a darker note.
Well, I think that that's what I love about Dolores's work is about the way her words and her script for putting someone under, where she, it's the pyramid of white light. And then
Hmm.
when I worked with the voice coach, when I did level 2, and she said, when you get to that point, and you know how you say, you feel it, and it is very,
Hmm.
very good. She
Hmm.
said, you say that, most of it you're saying in sort of like this hypnotic way
Hmm.
without a whole lot of emotion behind it, because you want to put them in that space. But
Hmm.
that, she said, you say like with power and determination, because you
Hmm.
really want them to know that they're in a
Hmm.
safe space. And she told me that she had done thousands of regressions, and
Hmm.
that she has never had a negative entity come
Hmm.
through. And she
Hmm.
really believes it's because and I believe her too. She so powerfully makes that a point that you're protected.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally had some darker entities that did come through in my early sessions. And that's also one of the reasons why I was like, I need to reach out to others. I can't just do it by myself, because that's such an intense thing. And I think that script that the BQH lady created, where you call in your own higher self and your own guides, as well as the guides from from your client, made a huge difference for me since I started including that into my script. As Cornelia and I were designing it, it never showed up again.
Yeah, I think that we call in our ancestors, ourselves from the future, both of the person and the practitioner. And then we also
Mhm.
do the white light pyramid. Like, I think both have really anchor in, and I just started doing it whatever I'm leading. I'm like, all right, if I really need that energy, I'll do both. I'll call in my ancestor, my guides, my angels,
Mhm.
and imagine that white light pyramid around me.
Mhm.
Whenever I need that safety, and it really it does wonders, because at the end of the day, like, we are the creators, like, that's the law of the universe, right? Is that we have free will. So nothing will
Mhm.
come through if we don't let it come through. Uh,
Mhm.
and as long as we state that, we can
Yeah. I think learning that and understanding that and knowing that the pyramid works and that the guides help makes such a big difference that I also started including that in my morning prayers. When I talk to my ancestors and light my incense and give my milk offerings per my Mongolian tradition, I always say, like, even my ancestors, please, only those that are aligned to my highest good, the ones with the strongest power and the ones that are most connected to me and have my most best interests at heart, you know, because when you just sit down and pray and like, oh, can this and that happen, like, who knows who responds, you know, and who knows who fulfills these wishes, but who knows what you actually end up owing in the end, you know, like it's a whole like thing that we need to like learn and also like talk to people about how important it is to make sure that it's aligned for whoever person is asking for something or putting intentions out there.
Yeah. Wow. That's really well said. Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all pondering that.
A good note.
That's some good stuff.
Yeah.
Creating space and holding space is not an easy thing, right? It's not something that you like take over the light shoulders, like, oh, just put on the pyramid of light and let's go. It's like you're on a real journey, and whatever happens when you're under, whatever happens when you're dreaming, whatever happens when you're taking psychedelics, these things are real. It actually happens to you. It changes something in your neurology, it changes something in your body. So to stay most aware and protected, like even when you light your incense and put your crystals, like doing it with intention and really, really, really focus that these protections take hold are so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're doing the work in your home or somebody else's home, that's the other thing too, you know, like when you're doing QHHT work in somebody else's space, or like I work out of my home office, you know,
Mm-hmm.
definitely want to make sure that you protect the space, you protect the person. I mean, you always do, but even more so then, you know,
Yeah,
you don't want to leave a trail of anything behind, you know.
exactly. Yeah, cleaning up after ourselves and after we bring out all these energies that need to be transformed and transmuted, it's as important as setting the space for it to happen too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because it's cute because like I said, my daughter's 24. She lives in Tennessee. I'm here in California. And she, whenever she comes home to see me, she wants to do a regression. She's always like, can we do a QHHT
I love
session? Can
that.
we do it?
That is
And
so
so
sweet.
to work with somebody that is your child and to guide them objectively through a QHHT session when what they could be experiencing might be like a painful life or one that it's hard for you to think that they went through. And that did happen with her and I. And, you know, I had to remain objective and guide her through, even though as her mother, I wanted to like jump in and, you know, rescue her, but I couldn't, you know, not because that's obviously, obviously I'm not going to do it, but, you know, my heart was calling that. But anyway, but it's interesting when you work with somebody that you know really well, that you love, that you care for. And then well, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I mean, just guiding someone you love through a session and being objective is
I
super.
know
It's a gift.
definitely.
It's a gift if you know, to give it to them. I think
But it can also bond you like on like such a new level, right? I haven't had the my family's very resistant about going there, and it makes sense because you know there could be a lot of trauma or karma linked to certain things, but it can also be clearing a lot of karma between you and your daughter by the fact that you're able to facilitate. So
That is
much love that
true.
you're able to be that, you know, and
yeah, we're really close. So, you know, I know she trusted me right away to do it. And definitely, yes, it bonded us immediately, you know, in the sense that she had that experience. And we've done it a couple times, and both times she's had, you know, a similar theme that she was working through in those lives that she explored. And so, you know, there were a couple different lives that she looked at where she was dealing with this theme. What's great about my daughter is she's very like kind of a high achieving person, like very goal oriented. So you know how people come with their questions, and different personalities come with different questions for the subconscious.
For
So
sure.
some people forget their questions. They're like, oh, I have my questions. I don't know what happened to them. I lost them. And then some people kind of come with a crinkled up piece of paper. It's like, oh, here you go. You know, some people want to tell them to you and you write them down. But her being her,
No, some people
shows
have
up
actually
like
like
40.
handwritten notes.
It was a typed list of 25 questions. And I was like, this is fantastic. If everybody would do this, like you'd be ready to go.
Yeah,
She's
for
like,
sure.
here's what I want to know. And you know what? Honestly, when someone does come to a session like that, like, here's what I want to know, I think they get so much more out of the session, especially if it's the first time. If it's the second or third time, then a lot of times, you know, you'll kind of free form it. Like the person I worked with last week, I've worked with her before. So she's like, look, I have a few questions, but I kind of want you to take the lead, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But the first time that I worked with her, I mean, she had a lot of questions. So I think the first time when someone comes in, it's good to have the direction, especially if you don't know them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
For sure. I think it's been like that with us too, right? Like when we do regressions in the beginning, we always had lists and things that we wrote down and focused on it for the whole week, what I'm going to ask. And then eventually it's like, oh, it's another session.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Bring in whatever wisdom that's supposed to come through.
And maybe that's what it is, right? As you get to know a person's subconscious, you can hang out with their subconscious and just let
And
it
you kind of
free
know what they need. And also I think what I like in BQH is what she teaches you is that like we set an intention at the very beginning. So like when I was leading my workshop yesterday, I had everyone set their intention before we went under. And I think because like a lot of the times when we come through in a session and we're talking about some kind of issue, like I'm dealing with a problem with like maybe some kind of relationship, usually whatever is going to come through will show you like the blockage that's going on behind that relationship or help you resolve it, or a life that has a karmic story behind it, or you know, whatever it is. And I think that that's so fascinating. What was actually interesting is that one of the girls yesterday spoke that when I did the past life regression on people, she actually tapped into her future life, and she went ahead and saw her kids, her nephews, and she actually ended up seeing herself die at the end, which she was like, am I supposed to be seeing? She's like, I didn't want to see this. But at the end of the day, I'm like, look back at the intention that you set, and she wanted to get to know herself better. And I guess the subconscious mind just really thought that that's what she wanted to see, and you kind of have to trust that. But I found that very, very interesting. But you always got to trust whatever it is that's going to come through that day is going to be what they want you to see, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, I think it was important to tell her that these are all possible timelines, right? Like whatever happens in the future, the future timelines, that we are able to tap into are all possible timelines and are things that we have access to at the moment. But with every different decision that you start making towards or against that timeline to come true, things change and shift. And I think we definitely should be steering away from like people being able to see where they end up.
Well, it's true. Like you bring up a good point. Like you know, I've had different psychic readings from different readers throughout my life. Some things have 100% come true, but some things haven't, you know, and now I understand it's simply because there's so many possibilities. There's an infinite amount of possibilities and all these timelines are existing. So it's like, which one are you going to hop into at any given moment?
Yeah, but also the fact that you now know that this is a probable timeline prevents for these timelines to happen. I think that makes a huge difference, because if you want to thwart off something that might be headed your way, there's a momentum going on in the quantum, it might hit your linear timeline. Just you knowing about it and start taking different shifts makes you not interact with that particular timeline.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's like maybe she was shown that because there was something for her to see, and now she can be like, all right, if I do this, I'm gonna end up like that. So now she has the awareness of that, so she can maybe make a few different choices in her reality in order to stream into a different timeline.
Yeah.
There is this, like, if anyone's interested in timelines, and I don't watch too much Netflix, but there is a show called The OA, and it has like
I love it.
perfect, it's an incredible show. And I watched this a couple years ago, but it's like it really shows you the infinite amount of timelines that you can exist in, and like one little tiny decision of you like not moving somewhere or doing something can make you hop on a complete different reality. But the souls that you've contracted with will always end up in your reality, no matter if you're in a different country or a different state. They'll somehow magnetize to you because you're meant to have that soul contract. So like us, even though if I was in California, we would have somehow found each other because we have soul contracts to work together. And that's just like so poetic and beautiful. Like
Yeah.
What's the name of this show?
the OA.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because that's like so true. It is poetic. It is beautiful. I mean, like, how the heck does, you know, Moon, you know, who's Mongolian, and her and I live like an hour from each other. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, and
Yeah, no,
she reaches out to me one day and, you know, calls me out of the blue, and I answer. And she's like, hey, you know, I'm reaching out to other QHHT practitioners, and I would like to connect with some. And I found your name. And like, here we are. That was a long time ago. That was like a year and a half ago.
year and a half. Yeah.
And, and then she tells me about you, Cornelia. She's like, oh, and I've also connected with some, you know, this woman named Cornelia, and she tells me all about you. And then here we are. Here's the three of us sitting here doing this right now. I mean,
Yeah.
what are the
I'm
odds?
so happy I did. I'm so happy. I was really like brand new in Irvine and super lost and connect with anyone. And especially the things I'm into are so fringe, you know. And then like having you guys and also my sister and Tatiana is helped me so much because I don't really need that excitement in my physical space anymore. I like the peace and quiet for sure, but like having those quantum journeys with you guys and creating what we're creating is like this is the juice for me, you know. I'm so happy for you.
This is
Yeah,
what's
means
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can I just say one thing about the conversation that we had earlier about the future timelines? If other practitioners are listening and they're tapping into future timelines and stuff, one thing I really, really like and would like to recommend to do is to create a keyword for that timeline
If it's
because
positive, right?
yeah, when you're able to jump into the future and that future timeline is a desired one, this is really where you want to go back to. It's very hard for us in our normal state of consciousness to connect with that energy of that future timeline sometimes. You know, you lose track from it or you make different decisions. But if you want to go back to it and you have installed a keyword, like the keyword that we install to at the end of sessions to bring people back into the relaxed state of the hypnosis, you can create a keyword to be able to tap back into the future timeline. There was a beautiful timeline that I jumped into and Cornelia put me under. It was
Yeah.
also like an eclipse. You know, I think it was like a year ago eclipse.
It was exactly a year ago. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I remember it
It was
very clearly.
exactly
Maybe
a
a little
year
bit
ago.
later because I've already, it was probably like a month through.
Yeah, but like eclipses happen every 6 months, kind of, I think.
Yeah.
Is it? I don't know. But it was like one of those eclipses like around this time, and like that future timeline blew my mind. Like I learned so much from it, and just like the fact that it is possible to jump into a future timeline, to be able to see it, to retrieve information from it, and then kind of keep that vision to be able to, you know, go back and feed energy into it is so beautiful. And even when I do my morning routine, you know, and do my 3 pages of writing, I say these keywords to myself and connect to the energy of
I love that.
that vision of that future timeline to be able to draw it back because I was so utterly and overly enjoy in that timeline that I want to go back there. Like I want to not go back there. want to
No,
move
I
myself
Want
into
to
the future.
manifest it, yeah.
yeah,
No, I
see.
love that. Because I had the same thing, and mine happened maybe like a month or two ago. It was the same experience as Moon had, where it was like this timeline where I'm like, oh my God, my heart, like I just want to be there. So
Yeah.
I
Oh,
agree.
wow.
Yeah.
I want to know. We're gonna have to talk about these timelines. It's
Oh yeah.
probably we'll do that like later, but I'm really curious.
No, I think like it's also part of us sharing these things, right? So we stay authentic. I mean, there's also these very personal things that we go through that we not necessarily want to share with the world. But I
Right.
think that particular future timeline, I would love to share bits and pieces from it. And it's actually really, really relevant right now because I got to see how the world is changing in the next few years. I was 5 to 7 years into the future from last year.
Oh,
And I was able to see how society is like separating into these two different directions, right? Like also in one of Cornelia's sessions, we were able to hear and understand how there's new world, new Earth timeline, and there's a new world order timeline, and these timelines are separated between the way how we work with information and technology and information technology, and how that kind of shapes our lives and society, and how the discrepancy is becoming bigger and bigger. Like we are really shifting apart, and it's all happening at the same time in the same place. So we are all living on the earth, all of us at the same time in the same place, but having completely different experiences. And these shifts are starting to happen since COVID, and we're experiencing it now, but in the next few years it's going to accelerate a lot. So the way how we use information, the way how we use technology is going to make a huge difference. And part of the messages in all our sessions has always been, no matter what you do and how much you work with the technology, make sure that you spend at least equal amount of time in nature. And a lot of us don't really take that to heart because we're so trapped in our having to get things done. But for us to stay healthy, for us to stay connected, coming back to nature, coming back to the plants, coming back to our natural remedies is extremely important to stay grounded, to be able to navigate it in a healthy way, because this matrixy technological future is really tearing us away, like our soul away from our bodies, soul away from our bodies, to a degree that we stop being able to be empathetic, where more and more people are becoming narcissistic and they can't even help it anymore. And it's a very dark kind of outlook. But then on the other hand, it's like the more we are forced to make these changes, the more we can choose to make them. And what becomes of us when we do choose to evolve, when we choose higher frequency states of minds, what we can create was unbelievable. I saw myself in the future, and I had this healing space that I've been talking and dreaming about, and I know you guys also share that same dream. And I experienced myself for the very, very first time how it feels like to have every single area of my life in perfect balance. My
wow.
body, emotions, mind, spirit, everything was in balance. I was in the best shape of my life. I was in complete, utter mental serenity and clarity. My emotions, my heart, everything was open. I was clear and I was safe and I was happy and confident and I was in love and I was really, really enjoying my life and my work and everything. And I was like, how did that happen? How is that even possible? Like, how does it even feel like this? You know, so first time in my life in hypnosis, I understood it's possible to feel this way. This is how we're supposed to feel like if we figure it out, if we crack the code, you know? So
Wow. That's beautiful.
yeah, and I would love to dedicate myself, and I am dedicated. I'm making the decision, as you're saying, Jackie, to make this a reality, find out ways how to do that with hypnosis, with meditation, with herbal remedies, with ancestor knowledge, with tribal knowledge, with all these different things in the right place at the right time, in the right constellation for every single person, to be able to be in complete alignment, to be able to download our higher selves and our higher state of being and really, really, really make it manifest in 3D. And I was like, that's
Wow.
it. Let's put in a keyword over here. And we
Wow.
did.
like, what do you say after that? It's like, wow.
Yeah, it was amazing, and I always keep that in the back of my mind. Also, the fact that there's this warning of we can get lost in the matrix, we can get lost in these programmings, and there's a lot of people who are getting lost, and there's more. Oh, another part of that future regression was also the fact that I was part of this group of people. There were these different people all around the world. There was this network of people kind of thinking the same way. It was like almost like a mycelium network that had each other's back, because it's going to, the pressures are coming at us, you know, from the government, from this food, from like everyday things. Like we have to learn how to function in a different way, how to co-create in a different way, how to collaborate in a different way. And there were all these people, like we, like, you know, when one of us goes the wrong way, like we would catch them, you know, and we had this network where we people ready to wake up, ready to come on the other side and leave the matrix behind. And we were there for them. We had the network, we had the facilities, we had the tools and technologies, and we had the herbs and the remedies to be able to help people to get back into alignment. And I think that's what I would like to dedicate myself to, you know, and I can see both of you going the same way, and I love that fact.
You know, I think it's fascinating because I think my regression was about 5 to 7 years as well ahead of time. And I was, I mean, I don't have to go into it, but I was seeing myself working in community too. And that was like my primary goals. We weren't in the same location, but we were connecting over with people and building community, and I was living off grid personally. I think I was living in a community, but it was kind of very spacious and there was a lot of land around me. I was very connected to nature. It was at a time where I was very clearly connecting with extraterrestrials, and they were coming in to visit me, and I was being shown a lot of things. And actually through that session, they brought me on, and that's when I was able to look at Earth from like on like this glass, so like almost like a future looking glass. And they were showing me the amounts of people that were migrating to different parts of the world, and like not, I don't want to call it, yeah, they were definitely warning that there was going to be a lot of chaos that's going to be happening, and they were pretty serious. But they said, you guys, the ones with a higher awareness, kind of going back to what I talked earlier actually, is that like we, despite the chaos, we're going to be pretty anchored in our knowing and in our own peace, that it's not going to affect us as much. But and to stay true to that was their advice, like stay true and don't be overcome by the fear. But there was this insane amount of sadness that like dropped into my tummy, because like I can even feel it right now, because it's like the heaviness of like what we're embarking on, what we're moving through right now, like really breaking through the darkness of humanity, you know. And but like the light is obviously going to always win, you know, and we do have to move through all of this in order to shift into that higher consciousness and into building a better world, but staying committed. And that's what like your mission is. That my mission right now, it's like, how do I like break those old pieces of myself and like purify myself so that I can dedicate myself to the earth and like to creating this new world. It's like, how do I live locally, you know? How do I help to seize capitalism and like not feed capitalism as much as I have my whole life, you know? And like it starts with like making these little choices here and there so that we can build this new world.
Wow. Thank you for sharing those. That's beautiful. I mean, those are some really, really beautiful insights about like living with community, about connecting to nature, things like that. Like, wow, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree with that. I think that that's exactly where we have to head and where we're headed. I mean, we're at a tipping point here. We're at a tipping point, you know, and we talked about the food, like you said, the food and where it's at, and you know what we're putting into our bodies, and it's to the point where it's like you can't avoid it. Like you try, but there's so many things that are genetically modified and are sprayed with herbicides and pesticides. And, there was a recent study, Dr. Zach Bush had mentioned a study. I don't know if he did it or someone else did it, but I trust his data, right? Like no matter who did it, if he reported it, I trust it.
Yeah.
And it's like 100% of us pee out glyphosate every day. Did you know that 100% of us, we're all peeing out glyphosate. So we're all being exposed to that, and like, there's been an increase I read this somewhere else, like in 44 countries, there's an increase in colorectal cancer. Well, no, like there's no shock there, if you're putting that stuff into your body, it's going to affect your digestive system, right? So I think we are really at a tipping point where it's like, we have to stop doing this. And I don't think it's as bad in Europe. I understand they can't use a lot of the stuff that we're using here in America. So kudos to Europe. In America, we got some crap. We got some crap.
I gotta start growing your own food.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
for sure. I think that really is a solution. And incredibly, I love the fact how Coco walks the talk. She like wakes up and she's like, I need to grow my own food. And on the same day, she's growing her food.
I gotta grow a box in the backyard right now, starting.
Yeah, it's actually happening.
That's cool.
Like, I just want to, like, I'm like so excited about like all this growing. Is like, I just really want to have like my own house right now where I can just start like having a garden. Like, if I could just do that, right? But that's why I'm like, I can't wait. I have to do it now, because I can wait however long. But I'm starting. At least small is better than nothing,
No,
That's so cool. Good for you. That's great. What are you
no,
growing?
the first step is
I
huge.
got like lettuce, potatoes, radish, carrots. I started growing some herbs too. So I got some oregano going, some mugwort, mint, lavender. Actually, kind of a lot of things. So I really want to start growing more though. I'm so passionate about herbs and healing through homeopathy, really similar to yours. But I want, like, my next mission is like I want to start making my own medicine. So, and like, what better way is if I have my own herbs doing it? But like, I'm still gonna start anyway. So I'm gonna start making it, but I want to do it from seed to making it, because there's like so much power if I take the actual seed, grow it with my own energy, then make the medicine. And especially if I know the person who I'm making it for, then I can really tailor it to what they need. So that's my next embark.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Can't wait to get treated. I'm curious, I want to try some of your stuff that you create.
I'm gonna bring some for winter. Maybe I'll bring some stuff for you guys.
Okay.
That'd be nice. Thank you so much. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we discover these things again and discover our ancestral knowledge and start sharing it with each other, because we got so removed by trusting the government and trusting the system and trusting the supply chain to do things that are beneficial to us. And more of us are really realizing that it hasn't been that, like we do survive, but like on the brink of existence almost over here, like it's like you function just enough until you don't have to anymore, and then it doesn't matter anymore, and kind of realizing how much these chemicals in all our things, even our clothes and then our washer and dryer, like how is it called, the washing fluid, and our like it's unfreaking believable. And I grew up with thinking, that's normal, that's what it is,
Yeah.
But my ancestors in Mongolia, they lived on the land with their families, with houses that they moved around, and with the animals, and they had the most amazing life, so far away from it. And I'm a little ashamed that I haven't stayed up to date in these traditions, but I'm definitely going back.
Yeah,
And
I mean, my sister and I were about to embark into a deep ancestral research for our family, because my dad was 100% Mexican and my mom was 100% Italian. So we know bits and pieces, we know different stories, but we want to know, like, we want to go in depth, right?
Yeah.
And so she's coming out to California. She's going to be here for like 3 months, and she lives on the East Coast. And we're going to start, we want to know, like, where do we come from? Because like with the Mexican side, like what's there? Like how long were our ancestors there? And we're pretty sure there's Spanish mixed in there because of the our last name that we grew up with is Spanish, which we figured out. But also like we have certain qualities that are very like native, like more like the native tribal qualities. When you look at us, like we have the dark skin and like I barely grow body hair, which apparently is something that's native to the tribes. I didn't know that till like a little while ago, you know? And so stuff like that. And then one time I was in a store like in Chino Hills or something like that, and I walk into the store, and this relates to the Italian side, which is Sicilian. And I walk in, and the man working behind the counter says, like, smiling at me like he knew me. And I walk out to him. I go, do I know you? Like, I'm getting that. He goes, no. He goes, but are you Ethiopian? And I went, no, I don't think, no, you know? And he goes, you look like an Ethiopian woman. And if you go home and you look online, you will see that. And so I was like, okay. So I went home, I looked online. Sure enough, he was totally right. I did a little research, and there was a period of time where Ethiopians had migrated through Sicily. So then the question becomes like, is that a part of us as well? And I think that stuff is so fascinating. It's like my mom was Italian, my dad was Mexican. Yeah. But like, where in the heck, what else mixed in there, you know? And they say that you carry about 4 generations of your ancestral knowledge within your genes, which in your own genetics. So it's like, what the heck? What are we carrying? And I think everybody has that curiosity. So I'm really excited to do that. And like the next time we talk, hopefully I'll have some information about
Oh yeah, that sounds amazing. And especially the fact that your sister's going to be close by and
Yeah.
you can do regressions on each other,
Yeah.
or you can do
I
regressions
get
on her
her.
and be like,
Yeah.
exactly, and be like, okay, let's crack into the DNA. What are these 4 generations telling us, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much
Oh, I'm
power.
gonna try that with my sister. I'll be like, okay, sister, let's open the genome.
I love it. I know you're lucky to have your sister right there and just be able to work with her. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Let's open the genome, open up all these things, and
Yeah. Yeah.
3D experience. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm very curious what's going to come out
Yeah. So
of
much.
that research. Yeah, all of us on our quest to get closer to our ancestral knowledge. It's beautiful.
I love it. I can see your dogs, just the nose of your dog. Right? Do you see that, Cornelia? It's fun. It just made me smile. It was adorable.
Oh, he's begging for food.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's hungry.
Yeah, it's time for him to get food.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we wrap this up for today?
Yeah.
Our first session?
Thank you, Jackie. It was nice meeting you. Hopefully we get to meet each other in person. I will be there for a month, like mid-December to mid-January. So maybe
Cool.
we could like all get together. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I've been really, really looking forward to get you guys in one room and hang out together.
I think
And
we were gonna try to do it last year, and then I had COVID. Remember that? I had
I
COVID.
remember that.
And then I couldn't, it wasn't bad. I mean, but I got it on Christmas, and then my birthday is December 30th. So like I pretty much hung out for Christmas, my birthday, and New Year's. And the symptoms only lasted a couple days, but then I was just kind of tired. And
yeah,
of course
no, for sure.
yeah, but
I
this
think we've
time,
all been there.
yeah,
Hard.
but this time we're doing it. This time we're going to
We're
get together, and
making
I'm
it
really
work.
looking forward to it, especially in the new year. We can set intentions and
Oh yeah.
do cool stuff.
Yeah.
Looking
Maybe
Sounds
we'll
forward.
like
good.
practice with like putting 2 under or something like that. That's always fun. Are you Sagittarius or Capricorn?
Capricorn.
Capricorn.
Yeah.
I'm Capricorn rising.
You are.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a grounding.
What are your other 2?
So I'm Capricorn. So my sun and moon are both in Capricorn. My Mercury is Capricorn. My Mercury is is that right? Am I saying that right? Yeah. And then, but my ascending sign is Aries.
Okay.
Is that right? Am I saying that right? I don't want to
Yeah.
sound like I'm not a super like, I mean, I know like some of my astrology, but like to say that all properly, I'm like, am I saying that
It
right?
takes a little while. It took me,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And
I
the
know.
Aries makes a lot of sense because I do have fire. And then if I look, because Aries is fire, correct? Aries is
Yeah.
fire sign. And then when I did the doshas with with the Indian medicine, right? With the oh my God, why is it?
Ayurvedic.
Yeah, we've said a lot of words and it's like escaping me. I am a Kapha Pitta, and I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense because the Capricorn's earth and then the Aries is fire. So
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting.
Interesting.
be cool to have more
Yeah.
water. I don't have a lot of water in my chart.
Yeah, just surround yourself with people with water.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
So,
don't have any.
Yeah, me
you know,
neither.
but you know what I read recently was that if you have a lot of earth in your chart, then you do have water in your chart because the earth
Mhm.
embodies water. So I was like,
That's
okay,
true.
cool.
It holds it. That's true.
Yeah. Cause like I have a friend, she has so much water in her chart and she's just this beautiful flowing soul. I feel like everything she does is just, it's so beautiful and graceful. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's cool.
Sounds good. Okay, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully also in the future, if you're willing and excited to have more of these conversations together, also on the podcast and for the Blueray Collective, we would love to have you.
Oh,
And
of
yeah, I'm
course.
looking forward to see you.
You two are amazing. I love the Blueray Collective. Like I said, if people are not following it, they need to follow it. And you want that thing popping up on your Instagram every day, first thing, because it is a beautiful way to start the day. I always love what you two post. And I just appreciate what you're doing here, creating community and just putting yourself out there and saying, this is us and this is what we do. And then you invite all us other people who are on the fringe, like you said, Moon, to be a part of it. So thank you for being the amazing leaders that you are. I really appreciate it.
Come join the
Thank you so
collective.
much.
Yeah, come join the collective. I love the collective.
Yeah,
You're all
absolutely.
amazing.
All
Thank you.
right. Enjoy your full moon eclipse tonight.
I know.
I'm sure we have a lot to report to each other afterwards. And yeah, maybe that's another podcast later.
Yeah.
Definitely. You two are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jackie.
Jackie. Thank you so much for joining us. Good